All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
You know what they call us?
All right, so where I left you guys last time, we did a very short episode of the Modstream Chronicles, and I managed to get some progress on a few things. Notably, I managed to start the AI for the Renegade Zerg. We also went over my ideas for what kind of personality the Renegade Zerg would have, where I wanted them to feel more like maladaptive. Oh, that's not the right word. A slow to adapt AI that would behave according to sort of preset conditions. So that is what we are trying to do here. So, I haven't decided a personality for these guys yet. Eye of the Storm is going to be like a trial run for the personalities of all of the AIs that you see. I've got to figure out which Cerebrid is actually getting killed here, though. Because that's going to be like helping me demo the idea behind this particular Renegade Brood. Zaz dies in the Zerg campaign. Then you've got Gorn and Arak who die in Shadowhunters. I mean, theoretically, this could be like, another Cerebrid. It was nameless. I actually forget all the Cerebrids, so I guess I'll go troll the wiki real quick. Because that's going to be important to me writing down what my actual changes are going to be here, so. Let's see what we can find. Looks like it might be Nargil. Where is the Nargil, anyway? Oh. No, Nargil and Zargil are from the Insurrection campaign, so that's not right. Auza! That's a good name. The fuck? What is Brontes for? Oh, that's also from Insurrection, it looks like. Or maybe this is Retribution. No, that's Insurrection. Argus Stone is Retribution. It looks like we're inventing a new one. Which is fine. No problems there. Alright, I've got to message Iker about a few things here. I just had to message him about the proposed changes to the Basilisk that I talked about yesterday, where you'll be able to borrow your Basilisks and they'll spread creep in a smaller radius than they currently do, which is already smaller than the creep colony or hatchery. But that creep will be able to spread on any tiles that are walkable, like fully walkable, and unbuildable. So that would be ruins, rocky ground. I feel like there's another one. Well, obviously the crevices. I'm actually not sure how the crevices will work. I guess like it's impossible to do. Well, it wouldn't necessarily be impossible, but Oh yeah, I never even finished this fucking bridge. That's a good bit. Well, I guess I can do that now. I don't know where I stored these tiles. I will have to remember that shit. But yeah, I think those changes to creep will be good. And there's probably going to be some edge cases that I'm going to have to figure out. But it just allows me to make maps that behave a little bit differently. I think what I'll probably end up doing, instead of worrying about edge cases or making it super specific to the basilisk, what I'll probably call that is enhanced creep. So basilisks generate enhanced creep instead of just normal creep. And that's how enhanced creep behaves. I think that makes more sense, generally speaking. Alright. I thought maybe that had something to do with it, but I guess not. There's some bridge blend tiles that I made at some point that are not these. Oh, here we go. I think this is it. Yeah. I'm not sure what these tiles are for, though. Okay. Looks good to me. Alright, I don't think I need to worry about any terrain details. I think we can just get into the bulk of it here. So since we're inventing our own Cerebrate, that means that I guess the Renegade Zerg probably won't appear in well, who's actually showing up at the... Hold on. In full circle, you've got the Redwood Ally, Dagoth, Overmind. Maybe Redwood actually might be the color for these guys. That might make more sense, actually, because if Redwood is the color of these guys, and I do decide to put in Renegade Zerg in the final map, Eye of the Storm, like the actual final map, in the final cut, this AI will behave that same way that Redwood did, which I guess will only make sense if you've played the campaign in single player. Like, it'll only inform you of the playstyle by then, so it's still kind of weak, I guess. A weak connection. But I kind of like that better anyway, so why don't we do that? Oh, Renegades, by the way. Oh, man. Redwood. It's 86. I don't think that color is too similar on the minimap, and obviously the player never uses Zerg units, unless they're mind controlling shit. Well, I get they can't mind control, but they do have Grim Reminder. Fucking Blind Judge. I probably need to add some more shading to that. Alright, so... get to it. So I set up the base layouts, or I started to set up the base layouts. I didn't do the one down here. So let's do that now. We've got mineral only. I kind of want to limit them to a certain number of hatcheries. But I think they should probably try to take control of the vague area over here. And then they can rebuild some of their tech over here if necessary. That makes the most sense to me. They'll probably just rebuild up to Hydra tech, I think. Okay. This is kind of a disadvantageous position to attack in from anyway, so they don't really need too much static to you over here, I don't think. Like, if you're just going to send a couple zealots that way or whatever, probably get picked off. If I can get them to... Actually, so an interesting idea I'm formulating right now is, like, there's always been flaws with how the AI responds to attacks sometimes. And sometimes you want to sort of stop this from happening. Just like the way that you end up doing that is you don't put guards on super high priorities or something like that, so that the guards don't override the defenses or anything like that when you're doing the AIs. And like what I'm trying to get at is I could tell them to place guards up here on these higher areas. I could even tell them to put like a basilisk up here and then build some colonies. But I think my biggest issue with it is, like, they're not really using the terrain to their advantage in that sense. Not in the way that I want them to. Because what winds up happening is, okay, sure, they have the ability to do all that. They have the ability to put units up here. But if they're not really defending with those units, like, if those units happen to be in the area to take pot shots at enemies that come down, then great. But I would actually like them to, if they have overlords in the area, like, assigned to this town, give those overlords and transports for other races defense actions to do, which is to detect battles near ledges and ferry ranged units up between the two. The problem is, obviously, there's so many ways that could go wrong. Like, if the dropship had a certain low HP, or if the unit in question was already pretty low and gonna die, and shit like that, that could definitely, I guess, backfire. But I think that could work. As a, I think that idea has potential. That's the other way around. I was just thinking, like, what if you were actually ferrying units down here and then they just started transporting, you know, Hydralisks and Basilisks up to this ramp to defend. I think that could be an interesting reactive play that would actually feel like tactical AI in that sense. Of course, I have no idea how you'd program something like that, but that is an idea, I suppose. So, hopefully I remember to post that somewhere for future reference. So I think this is probably as far as we're going to go with this base layout. I don't think they're going to get too much further out, considering the resource counts here. Oh wait, there's only 3. I guess, like, theoretically they could get more hatcheries, now that I think about it. Like, it might make sense for them to slap one... I don't know. We'll put another one over here. At least. If only to avoid the 3. I don't know how many creep colonies I actually have. We'll just eyeball it. Probably am missing one. I really love some sort of system in SCM draft that would let me... Yeah, it looks like I'm missing one. Number a certain, like place a number over units without having to use fucking locations, considering those are limited. We wouldn't even need that much for that. Like, that would just be another layer. Like you'd go to layer here and there's terrain, doodads, fog of war, locations, units, sprites, preview, fog, cut, copy, paste, brush, and you'd have one of those layers be like paint or something. I don't know. Paintbrush. And it would display like the doodad layer or the terrain layer. So like this. Or maybe like the unit layer or whatever. So nothing would visually change, but when you left clicked, it would actually like be drawing and you'd have colors to choose from and stuff. I think that would be really useful. So maybe I can talk to SI about that. Well, I was able to throw my hat in the ring there and sent SI my feedback. Hello, Firefly, Shirk, and Kaji. Apparently, Kaji, you are not the only one. You do not just live in a society. Yeah, I hope you're having a lovely Sunday morning over there, Firefly. Yeah, I just saw Joker recently, and that was like a couple hours ago. It was a good movie. I liked it. I thought it was certainly some funny bits, like when he says, I posted about it in my Discord server earlier, when he says, what do you get when you cross a mentally ill clown with society? that was the closest that he came to saying we live in a society. Which, you know, give the fans what they want, right? I have nothing else to comment on. It's yeah. If you guys remember the Legacy of the Confederation, I almost said Void Confederation playthrough, there was some clowning around. I still can't believe the gall of that guy to say, "Quit clowning around and get to work" after like a 50-minute cutscene. So I hope everybody's doing fine this Sunday. At least I assume it's Sunday for everybody. Of course, Balethal could join, and for him it would still be Saturday. But it's Sunday. Oh, okay. A meme campaign with some anime type plot? That sounds an awful lot like Black and Sunny, the 6942 saga. Which I should play just because the author was a Vietnamese guy, or I assume he's still alive. His name is Mark. He's Vietnamese. Mark009VN was his username. And he really liked his Scatu Mask. Black and Sunny, the 6942 saga. You don't believe me? I'll show it to you. I have it right here. See? Black and Sunny, the 6942 saga. And as you can see, there are a lot of maps. It's basically, as I understand it, like, it's inspired by Life of a Marine. So, that's what it looked like, anyway. I don't remember the exact, like, author's fucking manifesto, but... yeah, as far as I know, it's like that. It's that kind of experience. 19 maps. Yeah, dude. It's nuts. Fucking nuts campaign. And most of it's all micro too, so prepare yourself whenever I get to that one. There's the mix play. We know that's working. Always nice. I don't understand why you need micro missions, because then it's not an RTS. Like, by definition, a micro mission eschews the strategy component of an RTS. At least as far as engaging with RTS mechanics. Like, technically there's a strategy to... I mean, there's a strategy to, like, turn-based stuff, right? Like XCOM and whatnot. So, yeah, it's kind of more like an RPG at that point. Which is why they call them RPG missions as well. It doubles as... that's like a term I've heard used to describe them. But that's kind of a misnomer, too, because there's not really any role-playing. I guess you have to do role-playing in order to make up the other half of your brain that's completely falling asleep. Yeah, well, I think you can do all that. Like, Mesk and I talk about this on the podcast all the time. I think you can do all that through RTS experience. Like, the thing is, people just assume... And this is where I think I'm a little bit less radicalized than Mesk is, because one of the things that he said on the most recent podcast where we talked about this stuff, so not the Hong Kong one, the one before that, he mentioned that he does, like, environmental storytelling in his maps, and he doesn't feel responsible to introduce players to the idea that the storytelling in the environment is cluing them in to what challenges they will face later on. So he gave the example of a bunch of craters and disembodied or like disassembled missiles, crashed missiles, stuff like this, or missiles that were shot down. He uses this to imply that you're going to see nuclear missiles and other such ICBMs launched at you later on in the mission. But he doesn't do it with a transmission. He doesn't do it with dialogue. He doesn't hit you over the head with it. He just leaves these environmental clues for you. And then maybe there's some sort of klaxon or whatever when the military, actually, the opposing force actually launches the missile at you. And he talked a little bit about how he would do gameplay reads for that. But the environment is thus explaining some element of the gameplay or giving you, like, clues as to what to expect. And, like, I do this in... I haven't released any of this, but my new Inconsummate version has stuff like this where you'll only see dead, like, destroyed units in the battlefield that you're going to face in that map. So you'll see a destroyed carrier, and it's not just in any old place. It's actually blocking a ramp. I have the asset in here somewhere. And hopefully I can find it in a timely enough manner. I think I just scrolled past it. Oh, maybe not. Maybe it's up here. My point is being deflated because I can't find my fucking ramp. Well, basically the ramp, I'll find it eventually, but the main idea behind it was that it would show that it's like making you think, oh, this is a ramp, and it's no longer here because of this carrier. So it's like more in your face than just having a carrier crash somewhere would be. And that'll make you think, oh, that's a carrier blocking that. I wonder if I'll be facing carriers. Nobody does this in RTS games. So this is obviously a micro example, like a microcosm, not a micro map, but like an example. Here it is. So you see this, you know, in your base. It's like right below your mineral line, basically. You see that, and you're like, oh, that's a fucking crashed carrier, all right. And like, I'm going to tweak the appearances because the shading's a little fucked. But that's the idea, right? So you have this opportunity to introduce the player to certain threats that they're going to face. Like in my example, I used just a carrier. Everybody's familiar with that because they played StarCraft. In his example, there's no ICBMs that work like what his does, so it's a bit more important that he makes it maybe more obvious and makes sense in the grounding of the universe that there would be a lot more of them, a lot more of the results of them impacting and leaving scorch marks and craters and all this other stuff. But nobody experiences this in their RTS games. Nobody does this stuff in RTS games, right? Like, when was the last time you played an RTS and they actually hinted at something related to gameplay, you know, in the experience? You know what I mean? Like, it's so rare that like I can't think of a single time where it happened. I don't think. And like, his stance on that is, well, if people play bad games, then that's what's going to happen. And they're going to get conditioned into thinking, like, these lazy thought patterns or whatever. But I can't think of a game. I've played so many RTS games, I can't think of a single game that does that. And while that is indicative of bad game design or whatever, like the fact that nobody does this sort of shit, I do also think that because it's such a rare thing, it is sort of your... I think it would be a faux pas on the development side to not put an effort into putting this stuff together in such a way that you make sure that people know the terrain will have an impact, and the terrain means something, has some importance. So, I might like it better down there, actually. Oh, well, it would also help if I didn't fuck that up horribly. I think I might like it better if it's down one tile. But anyway, this is a long-winded example, but basically what I mean is that's an example of how you can do storytelling in a way that very few developers have ever done in an RTS without needing to... Like, that immerses you in the world immediately because it's something that happened before you were here, so you don't know anything about it initially. You don't have to get told by it through exposition, and it's something that if you weren't paying enough attention to before, that's a skill you can learn, is to try to read the environment better. And suddenly, like, that's better for you. You know what I mean? So. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Is like I agree with the theory. Like, I agree with what Mesk is arguing in general, that you shouldn't think like this, and like games should engage you more than that. But most games don't. So that's why I would argue, you know, it's probably a good idea to maybe do a little bit more on your end. And, like, you know, at the same time, I understand it's a losing battle, because if you had the opportunity, like, if more games actually did engage players, then this wouldn't be a problem anyways, because everybody would be already used to this sort of mechanic. But nobody is, right? So all we can do is hope that we could start a trend, but more likely we'll just have our shit that's good, and everybody else will be bad. Everybody else will be trash. Yeah, I've heard about that too. What's up, Hoop Thrower? I've heard about that too. The Idle Arena or AFK Arena games. Like, I have never played them. I don't know anything about them. But just the concept that they're marketed as addictive time-wasting game. Like, why would you want to play this? How is that even a game? You're really stretching the definition of game here, don't you think? Okay. Yeah. I don't know about that one. And as far as what Kaji said earlier, Command & Conquer titles practice foreshadowing occasionally. I have a feeling that they were the only titles that even came close to doing something like that. Like, they had visual set pieces. For example, they had all those, like, crashed screen ships or whatever they were in the second Command & Conquer Tiberium game. That I thought was interesting from a visual standpoint. I don't really remember, like, that game had the benefit of normalizing people to having, like, leftover tanks and stuff. Like, they started use that really early on. I feel like they used, like, debris and shit, right? Whereas Blizzard basically never did any of that. So, like, not until the desert tile set did you even see any, like, ruined, like, corpse doodads. I guess the installation tile set had a few. And again, they're all for Terrans. Like, I haven't seen a single Protoss one. I don't think there's a single one in all of Brood War. So, like, they definitely, like, came up with that idea and said we should use this as, like, decorations. And that was the inspiration for me for Inconsummate, not Command & Conquer. Just the idea that hey, I want decorations and I want to be able to tell visual stories through the environment, and I don't want to have to say like there was a great battle here through dialogue. I want people to just look at a battlefield and say there was a great battle here in their head. Like they can figure that out themselves just by looking. Like that's what I wanted out of it. So it seems like they had a head start in that sense because they didn't have to wait for some modder to fucking do it. Whereas I've never seen anybody even try in Brood War. There's like one guy, the Critter Campaign author, Bounce Him Up. I think in the Critter Campaign there's a few corpse special effects or something that he does in a few missions. I think that was the one time I've ever seen any example of that. And that was like a year or two before in Consummate, I think. But yeah, I don't know. It's just weird that nobody really even bothers. A measurement contest, yeah. There you go. I have not, obviously I've never played Age of Empires 2's campaigns, nor Age of Empires 1, so yeah, maybe that game will surprise me in that sense. Mr. Pud, how are you? I've never played Spellforce. Never played Stronghold, never played Empire Earth. I still have to play Stronghold because Shirk gifted it to me for like $5 or something. That's going to be on the list for early next year, hopefully. I think just the list that I have right now in Manifestad, which is Wanderers of Sorceria, Jesus Christ, Mental Omega, Annihilation, Wicked Reality, those are all custom campaigns. And then I gotta do Half-Life 2, Deus Ex, 1 and 2, the first two games, Command & Conquer Generals in 0 Hour, Battle Realms, Age of Empires 1 and 2, and Renegade. The Command & Conquer Renegade. Like, I think that's going to keep me busy for the foreseeable future, but we'll see how far I can go with everything else. Well, I'm glad you're having fun with the campaigns. I always found them super lacking, personally, but nice to know that you're still enjoying it in this day and age. Starcraft is the one game I don't think I've ever stopped just enjoying playing, even if it wasn't modded or whatever. Just playing melee games and stuff, so it's definitely a lasting impact. Yeah, I've heard that about Stronghold. Like, it's more, well, the city building is just more involved. Check out this album art. Think I'll get banned from YouTube for showing that? Only one way to find out. I don't know that I will enjoy Deus Ex. The original Half-Life was such a fucking chore to sit through. And I say sit through because it was mostly a fucking movie, man. Not too much gameplay in that game. And I've heard that people who like Deus Ex say that the only game they like better than Deus Ex is Half-Life 1. So that tells me that they're... that sends all the wrong signals to my fucking brain, man. But who knows? I could be pleasantly surprised. It just seems like it's a really slow title. Oh, I can't wait, Shirk. It sounds like a good time. Oh, you know what I just realized? I am a pretty big mongoloid, actually. The reason why my AI was like overbuilding shit when it comes to player needs, at least I think so, was that I would call player need in every expansion. I would multi-run it. Is that town specific? I don't think it is. Maybe I'm not a mongoloid. Hold on. Oh no, it is town specific. Alright, never mind. I have no idea why they overbuild it then. Blizzard is the mongoloid. For a second I thought it was like global, but I guess I'm actually not from Mongolia this time. Mongoloid detection plans, exactly, dude. Alright, so let's do the build thread for this guy. Do you guys hear the fucking music that we are listening to? The lyrics are pretty incredible, man. So, another thing I was thinking about recently is trying to make it so that the AI actively use all of their production structures. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but basically I want to come up with some sort of, admittedly it'll be primitive until we get better tools, but some sort of algorithmic type function in the AI that will loop through all of their production structures and randomize a certain attack depending on what they're doing. I'll write something out for that next after I finish this town thread. Because what I want to try to do is, like, if the AI is building a production structure, like an extra hatchery or an extra factory or an extra gateway, I want them to use it in their attacks. So that if you attack their base and you only kill 5 hatcheries out of 10 in the base, you at least walk away knowing you dealt a blow to their numbers, because that's how the AI functions. If I can make that a consistent way that the AI functions, I think I can work something properly in there. And I can also, like, knowing how many, like, that all of the production structures are being utilized will also help me, because especially for something like Zerg, you know, theoretically they'll only really be using like half of their available larvae sometimes. I don't know, I think it'll just be more consistent in general. And the other thing is, if the AI is using all of their production structures and they are adding all of these units to attacks, it rewards scouting because they're going to be adding more units to a singular attack. So, like, you'll be able to see more impactful army movements if you're able to scout. It rewards attacking them after they're attacking or during their attack, because there's way less units in their base because they're evacuating all of these units out so that they can attack. So, like, it rewards coordinating. Like, one player is defending and the other player is, like, striking. Something like that. Like, counterattacks are more likely to work properly because all of their macro cycles have gone towards this attack. And a bunch of their pre-placed units as well, probably, or like not pre-placed, but all the units that they had lying around as guards or defenders. I just like that. It makes everything feel more consistent for me. If players can learn to observe that kind of behavior over time, then they know that they can expect certain elements. I guess maybe this could also be something that only certain AI do, where some AI prefer to keep, like, to pull their punches in that sense, where they don't want to, they want to ensure victory, so they're not going to attack you with the kitchen sink. They're just going to attack you with, like, the fucking pipes below it or something. They're going to keep the sink to themselves. What's up, Banji? Yeah, I'm feeling great, actually. I don't know what Lisp is, though. You don't understand what randomizing should do? In this case, it's like, well, in the case of this AI doesn't adapt because the whole lore behind them is that their Cerebrate died. So they have this plan that the Cerebrate encoded into their structure. Because I'm treating what I want to do is treat all the Zerg as like a singular organism instead of like just them just being dumb because their Cerebrate is dead. Instead, they should just carry out their last orders, their battle plans, everything. Because that's stuff that I think should be encoded into their genes or whatever. I don't know how else to describe it. That's just my theory or my sort of thematic behind that. And so they're going to be as organized in a sense, but they won't be able to adapt to things. So like other AI will say, hey, I'm getting owned by Firebats, so I'm going to stop building a lot of Zerglings. You know, stuff like that, like basic tech switches, stuff like that, within their personality. So if an AI really likes to use melee units, then maybe they'll just prioritize going up in Ultralisks or something in the late game. Or if they really like using ranged units, but there's a lot of infantry killing other Hydras, like Marine Medic, then they're going to switch to more Basilisks, which are anti-infantry and longer range. And so like they're more lethal to that sort of thing. So it's not like hard countering, but the idea is that within a personality of an AI, they like to use certain combinations of units. They like to use certain strategies. Maybe one AI likes to drop, one likes to rush, one likes to sunken, turtle, push, something like that. I don't know. There's any number of compilations, but most AIs will adapt in that sense instead of just randomly selecting a bunch of shit. Whereas this AI specifically is just going to randomize its attacks in that sense. It'll have a personality, it'll have certain tactics it likes to use, or its Cerebrate liked to use when it was still alive, and all that stuff. And that's basically it, man. Like in this case, you'll have attacks will go through and they'll decide, is this an air attack? Is this a drop attack? Is this a standard attack? Or whatever other kinds of attack. Is this a harassment attack on resources? And each time they'll look for different targets, and I'll code all those in. And if there's is there other stuff that they want to do? Do they want to run in and prioritize harassing economy? Do they want to try to deny production? Like, we don't have the ability right now to target those specific generic ideas where they're going to go to a large, they're going to go to an area where there's lots of miners that they know that exists, like that, because I don't want them to metagame. So they'll scout around and shit, and then if they find your miners, they'll say, all right, this is a possible attack target, and then they loop through all their possible attack targets that they've just designated, and they'll go for it. So this is obviously a more advanced attack system than what we have right now, but I think in theory this should work out just fine like that. I think that would be cool. Yeah, the lore term is Renegade for some reason. I don't know why, because whatever. Rogue Zerg. But what's up, Rimtech? How are you? Welcome to the dance floor, dude. He almost looped it correctly. He is but a Padawan. It was pretty close, though. I will give it to you. Yeah, well, I just think it makes more sense for, like... One thing that's really cool about the Zerg in their thematic, like, not how they were executed, but the concept of Zerg just being almost like a force of nature that you can't reason with, you can't figure out. It's not possible to really relate to them. Like, when they infested Kerrigan and made her the figurehead, it's like, oh, well, this is a human now leading these guys. So it sucked all of the oomph out of them for me. And I feel like you could have had a much more interesting race on your hands if they were led by this overmind, and, like, even if you had never really interacted with that, I think that would have been better. Or if it was more vague when you actually played the Zerg campaign, and the overmind wasn't like a deity as much as it was just, again, a force of nature. I think that would have been way cooler, because the idea then is that the swarm itself is an organism, just one giant super organism, if you want to call it that. And then you can conceive of them that way and present them that way in game. And that's kind of what I want to do with all of the time. And any time I show Zerg is trying to think of how they would, like, how an organism would react to being threatened in the first place. They wouldn't just, like, well, at least some organisms would run, some organisms would stay and fight in different ways. And, you know, I don't know. You can abstract it as much as you want to an allegory or whatever. And the randomizing concept, I think, will be, like, basically what we can do is we can take a randomizer, like, say, again, like, so I'll draft this up. So we have, Excellent music for the background, by the way. Hey, Baleville, how are you? So I've got stuff like this, right? So we've got target A, production. So lots of factories together. It's convenient for players to put production structures together in their bases. So anywhere the AI sees production structures is a possible target for an attack. And the more production structures there are, plus the closer they are to the this AI's base areas, the higher value the target is. Because it's more accessible if it's closer, and it's more valuable if there's more of them. So ease of access plus weight, value to the enemy. So that's how you would judge there, right? So that's production. Mining, economy. If they scout and they see a lot of workers in an area, they're gonna hang on to what they saw, and then that'll be their whatever their last active vision was. That's gonna be their taken into account as well. So the same thing, distance plus value. So distance from base plus value to enemy. That'll be what they judge it, right? So we got production, we got mining, we got what else do we have? Tech could definitely be at. I was also thinking unreachable terrain or something, taking a flank, but that's more of the style. So here we have target style, right? So frontal attack, harassment, attack, or harassment / air, maybe special. We could probably pull all those, or we could specialize depending on how we wanted to do. Those are pretty much the main ones, I would say. Maybe then it's split attack, so you'd have multiple targets. You split your force to cover more ground and try to make them suffer a death of 1,000 cuts, right? So we got production, mining. I suppose tech could also work, and I don't know if there's really any other options. But say we have these options so far, right? Notably, we have 3 for each. So in this case, we can then say
that's 3.
We can say that's 3. We can then say AI 1 Todd. And we're coming up with a personality for Todd. So in addition to figuring out what units Todd likes to use, we'll say Todd is, as far as his attacks go, attacks with X units, whatever. Prefers frontal attacks, sometimes harasses. Prefers economy, attacking economy. So now we've basically put together what they prefer, what their preferences are. So now we can what's the term? I almost said castrate. That's obviously not what we want to do. So I really stratify. I don't know why I don't know how I confused those. So we're going to stratify this shit. And now we can say Todd is, we'll use D, E, and F down here, is A greater than B, exclude C, because he doesn't like that at all. And then he does E greater than D equals F. So now we've got a formula that we can use. So we know what his style is. We know roughly shit like that, right? And then we can say, we can now get it in percentages. So Todd, we'll say 85% A, 15% B. And then we'll say 75%, or just to make it clean, I'll say 80% E, or E, 10% D, 10% F. So now we have an example of percentages. Now we can take these percentages, we can plug them into our formula, so we can say random jump is out of 255, but we'll pretend it's out of 10, or out of 100 rather. So we can say like random jump, like we're doing the attack, we'll do random jump 80, target mining, random jump 10, target prod for production, random jump 10, target tech. So now we have an example of how we would put this together, like how we would put this to practice. And then the targeting would have to be algorithmic as well. Because obviously the player's stuff is is never going to be in a fixed location. But as an example, like this is how you would go about doing it. So it's a lot to even start programming all this shit, and it's not my fucking cup of tea either, so. But I think that's a way better approach, because then you can, like, all of these strategies that we put in, the styles of attacking and the target selection, these are all valid strategies for winning. But in addition to these all being valid, they're all separate and unique in a reasonable, like, it's not just like they're unique as in a snowflake unique. Like, these are actually dissimilar to another enough that it's very evocative of a different playstyle when you see them executed. So now we can have AI personalities, and we can write them all down. We can figure out what we want. We can show them in game, and that they can be consistent across maps. So the next time you fight Todd, like the first time you fight Todd, you only have access to basic tech. Next time you fight Todd, you have access to way more tech. So does he. Suddenly, his full frontal comps include like 35 siege tanks or something if you let him get too many factories. Well, that's a real risk you have to take. Whereas before you didn't have to worry about that as much. You know, a more harassment-oriented AI may start this off in the first mission you fight him against by sneaking some men behind enemy lines and, you know, sniping your probes with Marines or whatever. And then in the later stages, he'll just be doom dropping all of your bases. Like, he likes to split his attacks and harass at the same time. And so he's going to just doom drop your fucking tech or something. I don't know. He's going to go for a tech snipe with his drops, potentially. Like, that's a strategy that's really useful against Zerg. You just you find their hive and you kill it. Especially in Hydra, that slows down their overlords. Like, that's actually really important. So it's even more impactful than it would be in, like, default Starcraft in that sense. It has a bunch of other changes associated with it that are, you know, contingent on them having a hive. So, like, that's an example of how I would go about trying to import it. I do think that what Banshee said is probably accurate, like, value of their own, be disincentivized to lose them, understand what is worth losing for what target. I think in an ideal world that would be true. I think implementing this first is probably the best approach, because then you're at least figuring out exactly what the AI is, what the AI wants to do, and you're setting victory conditions for the AI in a sense, or at least like a path to victory. This is what they're going to try to do. This is what their playstyle is like, and then you can sort of build around that. So once you see that in action enough, and you play against it enough as a developer, you'll be able to figure out, like, okay, at what point is it actually detrimental for them to do this? And then you can try to figure out how best to, like, I guess, stratify or quantify the setups. So I just feel like it's risky to try to figure out a solution to that problem where they're suiciding their units or doing something in a way that is actually hurting them when all they're trying to do is play to their playstyle. I definitely think that is a concern, but I have no idea how I would go about trying to fix that until I saw them and how they fail exactly. Yeah, I think a value grid would be a nice starting point for that. And then you can also figure out how to assign value to their own units. And then, like, then that could be like a trait or whatever, like a percentage trait. So, like, well, the only thing that I can think of right now is, like, self-preservation. But you could put, like, self-preservation across different units. So this could work into how they retreat. So an AI with no self-preservation on its army will always commit its army to an attack, but will pull them back if they have self-preservation for their tech or their mining or their production, like all of these things that are targets. Like maybe that could be another target. Maybe they could scout out and actively look for your army and then try to pick a fight. Like that could be a target, right? In that case, they're coming to you and forcing you to react with your army. So if you're in the middle of macroing, they could fuck you. Like that's another valid way to play the game of StarCraft in that sense. So that could be another way to do targets, right? So like, in this case, we'll do EFG, right? So army. So stuff like that could work. Then we have, like, do they have self-preservation for their army? Yes, no. Do they have self-preservation for their production, mining, tech? The same way that they're figuring out how to target stuff, they're also figuring out at what point are they, like, what is the most valuable to me? And, like, maybe a more theoretically micro-oriented player would have more value associated with his army because he's going to try to spend more time with that or something, and so he'll try to conserve that, or like we can figure out how that's going to work. And so this will be expressed in game by him using better tactical AI, like better kiting and better Reaver shuttle micro or whatever. We've got all these other plans that we have in place for that stuff. But as a result, he'll build less production structures or something like that because he's got to focus. He's like floating money or something. I don't know. We can find a way to make it. Like I kind of don't like APM caps or anything, but I think reasonable tactical AI should be able to be implemented without it seeming like the AI is pulling its punches. You know what I mean? Only issue for Zerg production, mining may be harder to separate. I guess so. I haven't really seen how people are going to build lots of hatcheries in Hydra maps because the only Zerg map available is Zerg 1 and it's not really that large scale, so. But I think that I've seen people build lots of hatcheries away from mining. And with the resource changes, it'll be possible to, like, take only a few expansions and then build, like, 10 hatcheries and still be able to use them all. And so theoretically, you're not going to even split across your 3 expansions. Maybe you will, but I could see that happening as well. Like, certain AI in Hydra prioritize building layers and hives over extra hatcheries. And they value the increased larva generation speed, and that's how they get their money. So, like, they conserve build space, and they conserve, like, theoretically, there would be more targets for the enemy if they had more hatcheries. So they try to consolidate that and then defend harder and still have the same or some comparable amount of larvae to spend. So like stuff like that could also work in that sense. Like where that's another key point is because that's also tech in combination with production. So in that case, I think it would probably be additive. An AI that values production will still target Zerg mining in a sense because they're targeting the hatchery that's doing the mining. So, I don't know. I think there's a couple of different options. Yeah, suicide bombing tech versus a Zerg should have higher value than bombing a turn. Yeah, I mean, like, you could bomb a science facility, or you could bomb, I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Like, you could bomb armories while they're producing upgrades or something. Like, there's a lot of targets as Terran, but it's not as singular as just saying, yeah, kill the hive. Or, like, it's sort of like you got to kill the hive and kill a queen's nest, and kill a defiler mound, because then they can't rebuild it, you know what I mean? Stuff like that could work. But hive still has some value in the current rendition. So... So I'm not really sure how best to... I'll put a bunch of question marks here because I don't actually know. I don't know what else to call that, and it's not a really fleshed out concept, but that's an idea anyway. So... I would love to have that in Hydra, and I feel like a lot of the maps in Hydra would be a great example of like how to put that together. You know what I mean? So. like how to see that in action. So hopefully we can get something like that taken care of.
Hey, man.
Hey, man, son.
Darkwind howls.
Oh, you want to hear... Wait, which one? Balathal's or mine? I thought I could throw both of them in. Congratulations! You've received 100 messages with Restream chat. Dude, check out my Restream chat, guys. Isn't that exciting? And I can tweet. I can tweet about my Restream chat, guys. I'm so excited.
Fucking crows! Crows!
Oops. I fucked up my 8.
Zerg here. And
that is a good one. I like that one.
that's 3.
I actually don't remember how I did this. I think I did... I think these are in the wrong order, but whatever. Doesn't matter. Alright, we'll skip that one. And I'll find my fucking Darkwind Howls.
The Darkwind howls.
Enjoy howling. Check out my wind, dude. The other thing is, I don't actually know which one I want them to fortify immediately. Like, this one is probably the most the most at risk of being pincered between this early attacks, since it's right between both players. So this is probably the one they should fortify the most immediately, theoretically. But I think instead, like, this AI is actually just going to try to expand to a bunch of locations at the beginning of the map. So, like, they're going to try to put a bunch of satellite colonies around and then try to, like, consolidate them if they last a certain amount of time. So, like, they'll be here. They'll just try to take over the whole fucking map. So although, it is kind of funny to me to imagine a world where you've defeated the Overmind, you've defeated Kag, you've defeated Aldaris, but the Renegade Zerg are fucking still alive and they kill you. The shit closest to home hits you the hardest, as they say. I think that could really work out, man. I think that would be funny as fuck.
Bye.
Bye. Oh yeah, that's true, because the Overmind died, and so there was a bunch of renegades there. Every time I listen to this, I'm reminded of how much a mistake it is to use Audition to try to make music. I always fuck everything up with that one. Not in sync at all. I should start to use it just for the sake of this nonsense. I mean, obviously, I didn't make the music in the background of this track. Imagine if I made a banging track like this, and then I just, I ruined it with fucking Metatron. Yes, enhance.
I'm thinking. I'm thinking.
Yeah, I should. All the notable ones. Yes, Hoopthrower, you are a singer, dude. In fact, at some point I'll make a song just out of you saying bye. And maybe some other people. Because I don't think I'm talented enough to make a song just out of that. But we'll see what happens. Didn't you say something about, like, it's like, at the end of the streams, it's always fucking confusing to hear your own voice saying bye? I remember there's some comment about that.
Bye.
Yeah. I should bass boost bye. Hey, get out of here.
Oh.
Any fucking time I hear I see that earthquake one, I remember when I was so fucking high out of my mind playing Celestial Eruptions fucking micro mission inside the installation. I know which one. But it was the one where I kept going, get! And every single, like, somebody said, somebody made that, and I just went, oh no! We're causing an earthquake! Ah!
Oh no!
And listening back to that fucking VOD was real psychotic. That's like the most insane way to phrase it. I was definitely high out of my mind.
No way! I can't believe this!
Oh yeah, I should play your, that's what I should play next, hold on. We'll turn off this music again.
All my life, everything I touch turn to gold. Turn to gold. Turn to gold.
Oh, okay. That's a reasonable thing.
Citizens of Earth, lend me your ears and listen to me very carefully. My name is Dr. Eggman, the world's greatest scientist, and soon to be the world's greatest ruler. From this moment forward, you are all citizens of the great Eggman Empire. Now
Oh, no.
witness the beginning of the greatest empire of all time.
Take this! Take this! Take this! That's three!
This is a mistake, because you guys have all this fucking
Take
samples.
this! Get a load of this! All systems, full power! Get a load of this! Ah, he's not gonna get away with this. Take this. No way. I can't believe this. Ah, he's not gonna get away with this.
I don't even know what that was. What is the screaming? Yeah, the U's were good. That was a good thing.
Dr. Robotnik, the most cunning scientific genius in the world. Behold, it's a tailed frog. Very unique. That's right. You will now obey only me. No way. I can't believe this. That's right, Chaos Emerald. Don't you touch it. No way. I can't believe this. No way. I can't believe this. Behold, it's a tailed frog. Tailed frog.
Tailed fraud.
Tailed frog.
Froggy?
Ah, no, it was a dud. I am Dr. Robotnik.
It was a
the
dud.
scientific genius in the world.
Just like Sega's entire roster of
It's a tailed frog. Very unique.
Sonic games.
Right. You will now obey only me. No way. I can't believe this. That's right, Chaos Emerald. Don't you touch it. No way. I can't believe this. Get a load at this. No way. I can't believe this. I am Dr. Robotnik, the most cunning scientific genius in the world. Until we meet again, my friends.
You.
Bye.
Yes, he was nuking the SS. That is true. Yeah, it was. Yep. Well, oh no. That was the second game. That was psychotic though. That man was a spinner. He spun. A good idea. It was a good moment, that's for sure. Did you just come back in for this music? you missed some classics. Wait, which sounds was I replacing? Oh, with Take This. I see what you're saying. I still remember the what was it? It was one of the Mapcraft submissions where I had some real funny shit going on. Oh, I gotta put the latest Fraud Night video up. Now that it's done processing. I don't remember which map crap it was. It was a while ago. Looks like it was on the 1st of June. Yeah, it was this. Right, mine's called Thigh Squeezer. My theme was, it has to have a lot of pizza. Originally, my theme was that I had to pick a new theme. Yeah, he's alive. I need this man. Well, this is gonna be very bad if he's headed for me. Pizza minerals. There's a point where I get attacked by Zerg and it's psychotic. What? I can't build the Sims in the way. Dude, it's a micro mission! She can help! Holy shit, I was wondering what the fuck was in the way. I thought I was losing my brain. I indeed was. Oh shit. Zerg here, guys! Oh, there's Zerg here! Oh god! Holy shit. That was scary. That is a sickness. The updated version of this is way better though. There's like a whole host of insanity. I think I replaced all of the Protoss attack sounds with pizza from my father. I don't even know what I would do for Bear Blower though. I definitely need. It looks like my expansion opcodes are working. Ah! Ah! That is honestly terrifying. Zerg here. Zerg here. Zerg here. Zerg here. Help. Zerg here. 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 I shouldn't have said anything. Zerg here. Zerg here. Zerg here. Zerg here. We got him. I think we got him all. Zerg here. No, it's not. Zerg here. I mean, they're not here anymore. Look at this sea of Balefall Zergiers. These are... Fuck you, Balefall. The very first one where I say Bear Blower, I can do that. I don't... There's lots of sound clips you could pull from that video. Should you decide to.
What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and suffer the loss of his own soul? Take this!
Oh, okay. Glad you'd have that fucking bookmarked or whatever. You got it real quick. Hey, Iker, how are you, dude? You came in at the right time, man. Remove dark areas. I agree. You come in and see Bearblore, dude. Yeah, exactly. Oh, he time linked it. I see. In more serious news, I actually came up with what I think is kind of interesting, Iquare. So I was thinking about a new attack system. I don't know how feasible it is on a technical side, and obviously you're working on a bunch of other shit right now. So this is all conceptual, but I think it'll be really useful. Yesterday I was talking about how I think it would be better to find some way to algorithmically loop through all of the idle production structures that the AI has at the time that they are told to make an attack. And I guess they could also like figure... They might just loop through all of their production structures regardless of whether or not they're idle. But maybe you could do some advanced thing where you would, for the purpose of adding units to the attack, you would detect idle and soon to be idle in the next like 10 seconds or so production structures. And then you would add all of those production structures to the array of structures responsible for the attacks. And then they would receive requests, unique individual requests for whatever units were being added. We can sort of like simulate this with current commands, but that would be my base idea. And then they would have, they would basically go through certain style bias. So certain AIs will prefer to attack on the full frontal scale. They'll just look at you and attack all at once with a large group. Some will try to split their forces, which is what C is. And then some will just try to use dropships or use exclusively air units or do some other sort of specialty type thing where maybe they split on the same target. Like they split their air units on one side and their ground units on the other. Or their spellcasters do a certain weird special thing or something. So that's like one area that we can stratify AI across, where certain AIs will have different personalities and these personalities will preclude certain options. Then we'll have target options. And so this is where I think even if we couldn't do the style thing immediately, I think making an updated algorithm for attack prepare would be really, really fucking useful if we could do something like this, where it prioritizes distance from the AI's base locations or wherever it's going to mass the attack from, and the value to the enemy. And so we wouldn't be able to metagame. So what it would do is it would load up, say like the AI had walked into a base with some units, and they had the last time they had active vision of an area, there was a lot of miners on a certain expansion. So they would still have that old data regardless of what the actual data was. So as long as they or their team has had active vision on an area with a lot of miners, that would be like the highest priority mining operation that you could get. And then if they had vision at some point of like 10 gateways, that would be a high value production target. And, you know, if they see an area with like 5 armories or whatever psychotic shit you might see, like that'd be a high tech area or like a lot of hives or something. And then army is like they have active vision or previous vision of a large army in a certain area. If they want to go and target the enemy's army instead of their base. And so you would basically, the AI would just loop through all of these, and certain AI would exclude targeting certain ones entirely. Or they would just have a very low percentage chance to go for that. And you'd be able to say like say if you wanted to hard code a certain attack, you could be like AI set target army or something like that, even if they normally don't have a high percentage chance to target the army. Or if you specifically want them to attack enemy production at a certain point, or enemy mining at a certain point, or enemy tech at a certain point, you'd be able to do something like that. I think that could be cool. But at least giving us control over these as variables, as like out of 255% chance to go for a certain thing. This is what I've got here, where I use Todd as an example, and he prefers frontal attacks, and sometimes harasses, and never splits, and prefers attacking economy, and otherwise values them equally. And so I did like this formula, where A is greater than B, exclude C, E is greater than D equals F, D is equal to F, and so like that's using this. And so, you know, 85%, 15%, 80%, 10%, 10%, shit like that. So like this is an example of how you would see this stratified. So if we could find some way to work that in to AI, I think that would be really cool as like an end game, like what the final look of an AI attack system would be. I think that would be really, really cool. And especially if we could find some way to make the AI scout with purpose, like create a scouting party that's specifically designed to slip past enemy units and just find vision. You know, also increases the value of Parasite and other such spells if we end up having any scanner sweep, observer placements, shit like that, so that they can feed information into the AI so that they can make better informed decisions. Suddenly you're playing against an AI that feels a lot more like a player that's like making intelligent decisions, you know what I mean? So I don't know how cogent any of that was, but I hope it makes some sense. If you have any questions about it, feel free to ask. I was thinking that I would run that by you because that was an interesting idea that I came up with earlier in the stream, and I think it'll really work out. But to answer your original question, yes, I am working on AI for Eye of the Storm. Actually. AI of the Storm. I don't know how much longer I'm actually going to be working on it. How long have I been streaming? Hour and a half. Yeah, I'll probably stop in around like 20, 25 minutes. But I'm going to try to finish some shit over here with this AI. I'll give you an example of the composition stuff, though, if I can find it. So for Tyrion's, the Tyrion Protoss in the second Zerg mission, I came up with this, and it's obviously very messy. Uses a lot of lines, and it isn't really final anyway. But so far, this is like a very basic example of it, where the basic attack thread has a 1 in 3 chance to just go for an air-only attack, and otherwise loops through all of their potential production structures, or at least the vast majority of them. And so as long as they have this many or whatever, they'll call that these blocks, and these blocks add a random amount of certain units. So I don't think I showed this to you originally, but that was like the basis for the algorithmic way to determine what the attacks are going to be and making the AI actually use all of the production structures. What limits of the game should be extended? We won't need extension for build queues or selection, but what about the others? Well, is there an example of what kind of limit you're talking about? I'm not sure which. Like we definitely want what's it called? Number of active orders. Maybe number of orders it's possible to queue for a single unit. But that's stuff like a player would use more than anything. I know there's a pretty low limit for number of orders that a unit that can be given at any point, or number of waypoints or something. Like, for example, if you were at the unit cap in Starcraft, where you cannot create more units, if you were at that cap and all of the units in the map received one order and a shifted order, I think they would already be over the order limit, the waypoint limit or whatever. I'm not sure what the queued order limit actually is. That might need to be improved just because we're eventually going to be raising the unit limits. That's the only thing that immediately comes to mind. Huh. Why lurker spikes specifically? What kind of insane hard code nonsense did they include for that? I was also thinking, and I don't know what you think about this, but I think the ramp tile, because as far as I know, the ramp tile actually does nothing, the ramp flag. I think the ramp flag could be used as a way to create a 4th height level, where if there's a ramp flag, if there's an active ramp flag, use that as the 4th height level, and if the ramp flag is off, so it's red instead of green, use whatever the... Well, I guess that would be a 3rd height level, right? For sensibility. Because there's never going to be a point where you need, like, 2, 3, and 4. And same thing. It's a really dumb workaround, but at least we all have 4 height levels. We can actually use some, you know... Make it so that this here, up here, is actually a higher range, right? So, like, if I put a couple vultures up here, I'll still get the range bonus. Also, I don't know if you heard, but apparently Jay Barrino is going on a work trip during the time that the new deadline is at. I don't know if that means that we have even more time. Somebody was saying that he still, like, even though he won't be able to play it until he gets back, I think he might still expect them to be done by then. But I'm not sure. Oh, okay. Well, if it's a low number, then yeah, that should probably be extended, but if you don't think it'll ever be an issue, I don't know if it's that important. I guess that should be extended then. That should probably be like... $512. Well, what would be the next step up from 512? 65536? That's probably, like, in terms of how many there would be. Like, turning it from a 1.5 byte value or whatever that is to a 2 byte. A word to D word or whatever it is. Because, like, there could be in a theoretical example, there could be multiple Zerg AIs building hundreds of supplies of lurkers. And so, yeah. I wonder if, like, the lurker defense maps or anything like that have ever run into issues with shit like that. Oh. Oh yeah, especially then. Just for future proofing, it makes sense. Yeah, number of locations should definitely be extended. Though I think the way that we can handle that is the same way we handle everything else, where we just tell SI to, like, enable some... Like, it's so trivial, I think. I hope. Unless it requires a change of the file format, it should be trivial to add more than 256 locations. If we can do something like that, and it doesn't require a file format change, he can just basically enable, like, 65536 or whatever the number is. And as long as we're, like, well, I guess you handle it right on the code level, as long as it's done properly on a coding level for the game engine, it shouldn't be a problem. There is a chance where, like, that will require a format change. I can ask him. I was just asking him earlier about a paint layer. We could add fake locations as well, yeah. I get the bigger issue then is, well, it's just more of a nightmare at that point. But I think if SI can just allow us to go over the 256 location limit, and then those locations just, you know, well, I guess it would just crash vanilla Starcraft or something because of an overflow. Like, I guess what happens if you call the location, like, create location function or whatever in vanilla Starcraft when there's already 256 on the map? Like, that would be my question about that, I suppose. But, like, maybe it's just not possible at all and nothing happens. The function does not fire, which would be kind of dumb. But... Right. Okay. I'm gonna go get some more water. I'll be right back. Okay. So, what next? Kind of at the end of the stage here, but I think the only layout change I wound up making was adding these 2 reverse ramps here, so that there's a little bit more movement around that area, which I think is a fine change. Means you can use this area against the AI. There was, I think, some value to adding an island, or having it be an island in a sense where you have to use transports. But I also think that that value is still intact with this area down here where you can put like tanks or dragoons or whatever. So I don't think we're really missing out per se. Overall, I think this is a really well designed layout, honestly, like sucking my own dick, but it looks like there's a lot of really interesting options for players to, you know, force players into interesting decision-making avenues, whatever the fuck that means. I'm really liking how it turned out. Obviously, it's not quite final. Certain areas need small tweaks, and I still have to decorate and doodad a lot of areas. I expect the overall buildable and pathable areas to shrink a little bit, but I think there's a number of areas that are limited in how, like, there's not too many like straight long stretches of pathable terrain. It's very windy, and there's also areas where there's wide troop movements available, wide base building areas available like this. And there's also areas where, you know, it's sort of harder to move large armies through, which I think is a natural way to make your decision-making count and your micro count. I'm not really sold on the random temple bit here, but, like, I think I don't know how best to describe it, but to me it just feels like it's missing something. Like, I think I could move that down here in the middle over here. In fact, why don't I do that? Hello, Tadas! Or is it Tadas? Like multiple Tada emojis? One of my favorite emojis, I'll have you know. How are you? Welcome to the stream. More likely Ted or Todd. We're big fans of the name Todd around here, so you'll fit right in. Oops. Do I really want a lot of temple over here, though? I could do raised jungle instead. I think I'm gonna do that over here. Well, what brings you around these parts? Brood War, maybe? Okay. Well, I figured as much. Most of the people who pop in here have some idea of what, like who I am and what I do, so I wasn't sure if you had already played Hydra or any of my other work. But since it seems you're not yet initiated, I can give you a rundown if you like. We're basically remaking the old Brood War campaigns, adding new units, new tech trees, new art assets, all sorts of stuff. And most notably, we're remaking all the missions from scratch, doing some new voice acting, and doing all new AI. So that's what this project, Project Hydra, is all about. Oops. It's also about making mistakes, as you see. But yeah, that's the thrust of it anyway. So during all these streams, I just work on all the maps and all that stuff. Some more information in the description of the YouTube video if you're interested. Hello, Fourface. Most impressive was my playthrough of Flame Knives. Ah, okay. You had some fun watching that, did you? That is a famous playthrough, I suppose. So how are you, Full Face? Fourface. Full face. Full head. Doing good for it, exactly. I was wondering if your, I assumed it must have been, but I was wondering if your name had anything to do with that. That lovely emoji. It is one of my favorites. I always fuck this one up. There we go.
I don't want to isolate this completely. I just want to add a little bit of a puck stopper. But I think that's going to destroy my OCD because it's like not the same amount of tiles away from the bottom as it is from the top. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. In that case, I think we can just make it a little bit bigger. You get it a lot behind upon writing in chats? Oh, okay. Well, classic mistake then. Yeah, it's good that you're still able to make progress. I feel bad for even bringing it up, and like at this point, it's been such an insane amount of work that you've had to do just to fix that. Just more surprises in Blizzard's silly fucking spaghetti code of a game. A never-ending amount of surprises. We'll do one more. We'll try that out. So I feel like that could be a motor show. Oops. Oh yeah, I'm using hallucinations to mark units that are pre-placed. Or in the case of like above the creep colony, it's like what the AI will morph it to. So basically I've pre-placed all these units, but most of them are not going to be there at the beginning of the map. These are just to mark where I want the AI to build them, because I get to tell them exactly where to build basically. And so I use these as frames of reference. So the AI script looks like this right now. It's not anywhere close to being complete. But these are like generic requests for building workers, building overlords. And then they have their build threads, which tells them what structures to build. And then up here is like the coordinates for their structures. So these are just so that I can double click on them. And I can get their XY coordinates on the map and put them in there. So. I just want to make sure you can still actually... Yeah, you can still put that there. Okay, cool. It is kind of... It's still crazy to me that these ramps that DF made in like a day, some of them he did so quickly. He was able to throw these together. All of the ramps that are going backwards are his. And the idea that the ones that he put together like in no time at all are still better than the ones Blizzard made for remastered. Like, come on, man. That's just depressing. A lot of this stuff is kind of placeholder level still, but that will always fucking flabbergast me. Yeah, to anchor the position, exactly. This map in particular is a reimagining of the final vanilla Protoss mission where you have to kill the Overmind. And so you are, well, it's up to 3-player co-op. One player is playing as Tacitar's forces. One player is as Raynor. And then another player is going to play as Artanis, since he was like canonically here or whatever. I may decide to change it to Phoenix instead, because Phoenix was doing nothing during this battle initially. But, one or the other. I could see it being either or. Right now, I just have it as Artanis in the planning document. And basically, you sort of play like a MOBA. It's very experimental shit, but you can like get items and upgrade a bunch of shit. And instead of it being like some of those RPG maps where they make you like hotkey. I don't know if you've ever played RPG maps in Brood War, but they usually make you like hotkey a Stargate and build like a scout when you want to cast a spell. Like we just put all that shit on the command card. And so like you don't have to worry about that because we're modding pretty extensively here. Thanks to Icor's help. So, but if you still just like playing StarCraft, you don't like playing RPG maps, then you can play one of the macro players. That's fine too. And it's going to be pretty large scale, as you can see. It's a pretty big map. So you got some Zerg here, Zerg here, Zerg here. And then Aldera shows up and he fucks with both of you because he doesn't like that you sided with Zeratul. So it's not quite the canonical reimagination. This is a special edition. The final map will play out much more like the original. And it won't have like the MOBA aspect to it. But this one was sort of like an excuse to use a bunch of new tools and see what we could pull off. And we should have it done by mid-November, if all things go well. Alright, we're winding down here. My final thoughts, more or less, on the way that the outline has progressed at this point. I don't think that there's too much more that I need to change. Certainly some areas of the map will probably benefit from having a bit more unbuildable terrain or a bit more unpathable terrain. And the map is far from done in the decoration phase. I still have to make a bunch of new art assets for the destroyed doodads and stuff, like corpses, decorations and such. But some good progress in the AI. We did the town threads. We finished the base layouts for this base down here. And we came up with all that attack stuff that we talked about earlier in the stream, so that's good. We listened to some psychotic music like this, so that's always nice. And, yeah, as always, progress marches on. We have a little bit of a better understanding of what it is exactly we are meant to be doing with this map. They're gonna get, so whenever the macro players return resources, the macro players still get all of the resources, all 8 minerals and gas, or all 2 if it's depleted. But 25% of that money, so 1/4, will be transferred to the macro player, or the micro player. So there's no penalty for the macro players, but the micro player just clones a quarter of all income. Hey Connor, what's up? You got here just in time for me to sign off. But how are you? I'll stick around for a little bit longer. Just to say hi to you. Yes, that's exactly what this is. It's a micro mission. I'm doing really well, thank you. Yeah, that's even worse. Aw, man. Maybe I am Metathrone.
Kill yourself.
He sounds so genuine when he says that. Like he really wants it. Almost like there's some almost like there's some hidden resentment. It's really weird. Well, I guess to each their own, Rimtech. It's like all art, it's up to interpretation. I'm still not really like super happy about how this bottom area turned out. I feel like even though it's such a small piece of terrain, this probably could have been incorporated in a bit more of an intelligent way. Like maybe what I can do actually, at least I think I can do, is I can probably... Oh, no, never mind. It's not going to line up here. I was going to suggest to myself that I move this up a block or two, and then I erase this shit. And
I turned this into like a reverse ramp, but I can move this up a little bit, but I can't do that if this is still going to stay in the same area.
Oops!
What a disaster. Borinos are in the eye of the beholder, yeah. Pretty much. And I think with that, we can close things out. As always, it was lovely streaming to you guys. Thanks for being cool. Thanks for being here and watching me mod in all hours of the night and day. And we will be back probably sometime tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly when, but we'll figure something out. Thanks. Bye.
Zerg, here?
Well, Commander, I'll be seeing you.